If you're going to be prosecuting your own cases in court, you should have access to the same training that defense attorneys have. I'll let you in on a little secret. They don't teach you how to do trials in law school. It's an acquired skill. Anyone can learn it, even you. In this video, I'm going to explain how to do something that I see officers struggle with all the time, and that's how do I enter my exhibits into evidence. In this video, I'm going to break down and explain how to enter your exhibits into evidence. Coming up. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Tactical In-Service Podcast, a podcast for law enforcement where I break down training topics in case law to help you, the law enforcement community, stay up on the law. I'm attorney Eric Scramble with Tactical Legal Solutions, and today I'm going to be talking about how to enter exhibits into evidence. At least two basic exhibits. I want to cover how do you enter your body cam into evidence, and how do you enter a photograph. They're basically the same thing, and I'm going to go over that and show you how to do that. As I mentioned in the intro, as a prosecutor, occasionally I would see some of the officer prosecuted cases, and you would see the officer go to testify and then just try to hand their evidence into the judge. And when they would try to hand their evidence into the judge, the defense attorney, of course, would object because the officer wasn't laying foundation as the rules require. And when the judge sustains the objection, you see that the officer gets this sort of deer in the headlights look, and they don't really know what to do, and they end up just saying, okay, I got nothing else, and then the judge dismisses the case. It's okay, you weren't taught how to do this stuff. So in this video, I'm going to break down how you can enter your simple body cam, photographs, things like that into evidence. Before I get started, since I'm talking about officer prosecuted cases, if you're a New Mexico officer, you have to prosecute some of your cases in court. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be doing a training down here in Hobbs, New Mexico, through the Southeast New Mexico Law Enforcement Academy in the New Mexico Junior College on April 6th and 7th, 2022. I'm going to leave a link in the description below where you can register for that. Only got like 20 spots open for that, so it's going to fill up really quick. So make sure if you're watching this video and it's before April 6th, go down, get signed up. I think the registration closes on April 4th. I'm going to be teaching you how to do a trial from start to finish. It's 2 days long. I'm going to put you through a mock trial. By the end of it, you should have the basics down and have the confidence to go in and actually try your own case because it's an acquired skill. Like I mentioned, they don't teach you how to do trials in law school. There are some specialty classes, but you really learn sort of on the job and in advanced training. So it's a skill anybody can learn. And I'm going to teach you guys how to do your own trial. So make sure if you get a chance, sign up for that. If it's past April 6th and 7th, you can go to my website at tacticalattorney.com. I offer this course. I'll come teach it at your department. Do them online all the time. All right, so let's dive right in. First of all, before we go into this, you have to understand that when you do a trial, they're governed by what we call the rules of evidence. So imagine like a football game or a baseball game where there's rules to the game. The same thing applies to trials. We have a set of rules. They're known as the federal rules of evidence. Now, New Mexico has their own rules of evidence, but they're basically the same thing as the federal rules of evidence. So I'm going to leave a link in the description below so you can check them out and have a copy of it. I should also mention I'm going to leave a link in the description below where you can download my free evidence cheat sheet and my free foundations cheat sheet. So what I talk about here today, I memorialized in a cheat sheet. So you can go down and click the link and get a copy of that so you can actually take that to trial with you. So the rules of evidence govern how the trials work. And the rules of evidence say that you can't just come into court and then just hand the evidence to the judge. There's a process you go through. It's called laying foundation. So what I want to do in this podcast episode, this video, is I want to walk you through how to enter into evidence your body cam and a photograph if you have it. And by the way, even if you're doing a speeding trial, what you should definitely at least get a Google Earth photo, especially if it's in an area the judge may not be familiar with. It's very powerful to use visuals in trial, and I'll show you right now, tell you how to enter that into evidence. Okay, so laying foundation, what is it? What does it mean? The rules of evidence require that whenever a witness is going to testify or we're going to put evidence into the record, they have to lay foundation. So think of it like building a house. You don't get to put the roof on until you lay the concrete, and build the house around it. And then the last thing you do is put the roof on it. So you can't get to that point until you lay the foundation or the concrete. That applies to testimony. And by the way, your testimony, the words that you speak to the judge during the trial, is considered evidence. So you have to lay foundation even for that. So let me kind of start with that. First of all, is laying foundation for testimony. So let's say that you have a speeding case. You stop the defendant doing like 73 and a 45. You're going to go to court and you got to do an officer prosecuted trial. You have to lay foundation to talk about things that you want to testify. So for example, you want to testify that the defendant made a statement to you. Maybe the defendant said when you wrote the ticket, come on, man, I know I was speeding, I was going really fast, but I'm late for work and now you're making me more late. Well, that would be a very powerful piece of evidence to use in the trial. If you want to get that statement in, first you have to lay foundation. So you have to tell the judge that you were there, that you heard the defendant, you were standing close to him, and just show the judge that you were privy to that, because the rules say that you can only testify to your personal knowledge. So before you say what the statement was that the defendant made, you have to give the judge the foundation that shows that you were there on the scene on that day and you were standing next to the defendant when he said that. It may seem like that's common sense, but it's really not. You can get in trouble if you got multiple witnesses in a trial and you just sort of skip over stuff and you'll hear a lack of foundation objection. So what that means is you got to tell the judge what your personal knowledge is. That means you got to tell the judge you were there on the scene and heard it. So you got to tell your story and lead up to it. So how would you do that? Well, first of all, you'd say, I made the traffic stop, approached the defendant. The radar was 73 and a 45. When I approached the defendant, I wrote a ticket. I handed him to it. I was standing right next to the defendant, and I heard him yell out, and you can even hear it in my body cam, hey, man, I'm sorry I was speeding. I'm late for work. So now you've laid the foundation to get that statement into evidence. All right, I wanted to cover that really quick first because a lot of times we forget that testimony is evidence and you have to lay foundation for it. So what about body cams? How do we get that body cam into evidence? All right, let's say you got a body cam and it records the defendant, being very colorful and just something you want to use into evidence. They're making all kinds of incriminating statements, so you want to play that video for the judge. How do you do that? Well, first of all, you're going to bring a copy of the video with you, because the rules of evidence say when it comes to videos and photographs, they're treated the same way, and you can look at the rule. It's Rule 901 in the Federal Rules of Evidence, and we call that authenticating or identifying evidence. So if you want to get that body cam video into evidence, you want to save it on a DVD or a flash drive or some sort of physical media and then mark it as an exhibit. And then when you're testifying up there, the rule says in order to authenticate under 901 that you have to tell the judge that this piece of evidence is what you purport it to be. What the hell does that mean? Well, if you remember the commercials, I forget the football coach, they are who we thought they were. That's what the rule says. You got to tell the judge it is what you're telling them it is. So if you're telling the judge that on this flash drive or this DVD is your body cam, you got to offer some evidence to the judge to show that it actually is that. So how would you do that? You would say, Your Honor, when I was on the scene, my department issued body cam was recording. When it was over, I went back and I reviewed that footage. In it, here's the magic words, fairly and accurately depicted the conversation I had with the defendant. You've just told the judge that this flash drive that you reviewed, this DVD that you reviewed, is your body cam, and it fairly and accurately shows the conversation you had. That's it. It's all you need to do foundation-wise to enter this thing into evidence. Then you would move for admission. The same thing works for a photograph. You would say, Your Honor, this is a Google Earth photograph. This is the area I stopped the defendant in. It fairly and accurately shows what the conditions of the roads were like. Obviously, it's not an exact photo because it's Google Earth, but this is what it looked like when I was out there. And by the way, for a photograph, you don't have to be the one that took the picture. You don't have to tell the judge that it's an exact match of every single condition that day. It just has to fairly and accurately depict what it looks like out there on the scene, so that you can easily get a Google Earth photo in by just saying, Your Honor, I was on the scene. I'm very familiar with this area. This photograph fairly and accurately depicts what it looked like on October 15, 2021, when I made a traffic stop of the defendant. That's all you need to do under Rule 901. That's it. After you do that, you can move for admission. That's all that's required. it can get a little more complicated. There are other objections like hearsay and speculation and all that other stuff out there. But just the basics is where you want to start here. If you can do just that and know how to lay the foundation to get that body cam in and lay the foundation to get your photograph into evidence, you start to get a feel for like how the trial works, and then you can start building on it with the other stuff. But this is 95% or more, is just having the basics down. If you can get that far, you should be able to get into evidence. And the judge is probably going to say that's good enough. You did a really good job laying the foundation. Again, you can download my cheat sheet down there, take it to court. I wrote it all out for you, everything you have to say to enter into evidence. So, all right, let's do a quick recap of this. All right, so the rules of evidence govern trials. All right, and the rules of evidence say that witnesses, like yourself when you're testifying in trial, are limited to things that you have personal knowledge of. You have to lay foundation to show the judge that you have personal knowledge, either from your own testimony or personal knowledge about this exhibit. Rule 901 governs the authenticating and identifying evidence, which is what you need to understand if you're going to enter your body cam or the photograph into evidence. How do you do that? You tell the judge it is what you claim it is. So here's the DVD, judge. I watched it. I reviewed it before I came to court today. I even put my initial on here to show you that I reviewed it. And when I reviewed it, it fairly and accurately depicts my conversation with the defendant on October 15th. That's it. All right, let's do a conclusion and kind of wrap up what we talked about. First of all, understand that the federal rules of evidence, or the New Mexico rules of evidence, apply to trials. It's the rules of the game. And the rules of the game state that you as a witness, when you're testifying, are limited to things that you have personal knowledge of. So things that you saw, touch, taste, feel, you're limited to that. And in order to testify, which is evidence, you have to lay foundation. So if you want to testify about a statement that the defendant made to you, that he admitted to speeding, then you need to lay the foundation first to show the judge that you were there on the scene, asked the defendant a question, was standing next to him, and could hear it. You lay that foundation. Once that's done, then you can get that statement into evidence. When we talk about photographs and body cams, look to Rule 901, which is the authentication and identification of evidence. All you have to do to get your body cam into evidence is testify that, Your Honor, here's a flash drive or a DVD. I reviewed this before court today. This is my body cam footage. It fairly and accurately depicts the conversation that I had with the defendant on that date. You do the same thing for a photograph. Your Honor, this is a Google Earth photograph of the intersection of Millen and Grimes. I'm very familiar with the area, patrolled this area for 7 years. This is a fair and accurate depiction of what that intersection looked like. That's it. That's the foundation you have to show to get it in. And yes, there could be some other objections that apply, but this is 95% of what you need just to get those basics to get it in. That should be all you need to get a photograph or your body cam into evidence. I should mention there is one other way, but you probably won't have to worry about this in an officer prosecution case. There's a part of Rule 901, what we call the system or the process. So let's say, for example, you have 2 officers in your officer prosecuted case and you want to get the other officer's body cam in. Well, you don't have personal knowledge because it's not your body cam, but what you could say is, I reviewed it and I understand how our body cam system works, and then tell the judge a little bit about how it works, and I reviewed this video and it appears to be working properly. That's it. You show that the system and process, you're familiar with it and it works properly and it comes in. Like I said, you probably won't have to worry about that. 9 times out of 10, you're just going to be putting your own video into evidence. Just use the process that I told you. I hope that helps. I know that's 10 minutes of how to get something into evidence. It really is that simple, but you just have to understand those basics. Go ahead and click that link and download my cheat sheet down there. You can take that to trial with you, and that should help. If you want to learn how to do the whole trial from start to finish, again, April 6th and 7th, down here in Hobbs. I'd love to see you guys out there. It's going to be a really fun class. We're going to go through everything. I'm going to have you write an opening, a closing. We're going to practice getting exhibits admitted into evidence, all of this stuff. So at the end of the training, I'm confident that you're going to be confident to go to trial and actually start trying your own cases in court. So I hope this helps, guys. Remember, until next time, every battle is won before it's fought. Please stay safe out there. I will see you on the next episode.